Welcome back to episode 41 of Monday Diaries, which is essentially me building in public and distilling all of my lessons and learnings into these weekly videos. I just wrapped up a 3.5 hour call with my co-founder Evan. I'm gassed but very motivated. There's so much momentum and things happening. It was our biggest month in business and lots of stuff to break down for you guys. So I'm about to jump on another interview now, but I'll sit down on the couch afterwards and get you up to speed. It came straight out of a fever dream. Alright, the interview went well on a scale of 1 to most aligned Art of Mondays member 10. He was like a 9.5, so I think that he'll come on board. His co-founder seemed interested as well, so I'll chase that up. And maybe some more members to report on next week. But until then, this is going to be a raw one-take update, just sitting down yapping for usually less than 10 minutes and just trying to pack it full as much juice as I can. The honest update is that we've had a lot of highs in the business in the last 3 weeks, like high after high, and usually after that comes a low. I haven't felt that necessarily, but it was such a nice reminder of in the book, The World's Greatest Salesman, or The Greatest Salesman in the World, one of those. There's a concept called this too shall pass, and most people use that in the context of when things are bad, this too shall pass, but also when things are good, this too shall pass, and you can remain level-headed and emotionally detached from everything that's happening. And so that's a practice I'm trying to put in place, because right now things are soaring and high, but they're not always going to be. That's the nature of business, so trying not to let that pendulum swing too hard either way. I feel pretty packed in. I know I've spoken on recent episodes that I like an unscheduled calendar. It is very much not the case this week. I have 14 member interviews booked in, and I'm trying to pack for our trip, because on Sunday, right as I come back from down south, I leave to Indonesia. We're running a founder house there. For those who are new here, I'll put a video over the screen to show you what our last founder house looked like, to give you a bit of an idea. So they are really quite relaxed, but also an intense period of time, because I want to be very present. And there, with everyone that's in the house, it's going to be 8 days out in Lombok, and then I'm there for Kami's wedding, and then shooting over to the east coast of Australia for another house. So I'm away for about a month total, and I'm trying to prep and pack for that in these next 4 days as well. So lots happening, but as I said at the start of this video, gassed but motivated for sure. It's easy to be motivated when you're making money. And that's my takeaway, is just make sure you're making money during those times of peak stress and schedule madness. But anyway, quick wins for the week that you guys might like. The first is an app that I downloaded. It's called Deep Stash. I saw a couple of ads on Instagram. I thought they were quite creative. And it's basically like a social media app where you scroll, but instead of scrolling, dopamine-inducing things, you're scrolling summaries of books and podcasts, like little snippets and key takeaways, which I thought was really dope. So I downloaded that. I'm going to start using that more frequently. And the other one is a book. This book that I got recommended, it's called Influence. It's much bigger and fatter than I thought it would be, but really juicy. We started reading it yesterday. And it basically has 6 psychological principles that you can use to get someone to do what you want. And it sounds manipulative, but in my context, it's actually used to do things like create viral YouTube videos, because your title and your thumbnail and the idea and the psychology behind that gets people to want to click and want to watch to the end. So that was kind of the inspiration behind getting that book. But I think it's a great book in general. I've got a story I'll tell you about in a second from the book. No, I'll tell you right now. It's next on my list, which is there's a story about a woman that owns a jewelry store, like a tourist kind of store with not just jewelry, but other stuff as well. And she had this turquoise jewelry that she wanted to sell. And for some reason, no one was buying it. She'd moved it in the store. She put it in the middle of the store, so it's the first thing people saw. They wouldn't really buy it. She put it on the counter, so it's the last thing people saw. They still wouldn't buy it. So finally, she was about to leave on a trip. And so she left a note for one of her team members to say, half price, make all of this jewelry half price for when I go away, and hopefully it's gone by the time I get back. She came back a week later, and to her astonishment, it was all sold. All of the jewelry was gone. And she went and spoke to the team member, and she said, "Oh, this is amazing. We sold all the jewelry," even though they sold it at a loss just to get rid of it. and realized that she had misinterpreted the note and actually doubled the price of all the jewelry. So instead of half, it was 2 times. She thought it was twice the price. And despite the price, it all sold. And the lesson is this idea that expensive equals good. It's a preconceived psychological notion that people have, which is, oh, if it's that cheap, it must not be very good. So when you price up, oh, it's that expensive, it must be good. There's like this perceived quality. And, I reflect back to our product with Art of Mondays. Our membership price is almost double, and it is double what we started with when we launched, and we're getting more yeses now than we ever have. And it's that same psychological shift of, oh, it's expensive, or relatively speaking, it depends who you're speaking to. Some people still think it's very cheap, but it's more expensive. So I wonder what this key value is. I wonder why there must be something that I'm missing, and that's why it's not a cheap option. So that was a concept that I found really fascinating, like the first 2 pages of that book. So pick it up if you're curious about that. Another idea that I want to share is what to do when you're unmotivated, because the reality is we're not going to be motivated 24/7 every day of the week to do everything that we want to do. There is times when you're just sitting on the couch and you're scrolling and you're unmotivated. And this is from another book I'm reading called Hell Yeah or No, I think is the book. And he basically said, when you're unmotivated, do the dull everyday tasks that you've been putting off, because when you're motivated, you're excited and actively working towards other things, you never get to them anyway. So when you're unmotivated, you can clean the house, you can unpack the garage, you can do all of those things that you have been putting off, but it still makes you feel better if you do them. And it's also, one small win that leads to another small win that actually builds momentum again. So over the weekend, I had a spur of inspiration, and we took out everything under our stairs over there and just pretty much everything in storage in this apartment, and just had a little family garage sale. My mum, she lives down south, but she brought my brothers up, and I probably shouldn't have given mum any stuff, to be honest. She has too much at home, but they took some stuff, our neighbours, it was just a bit of fun. The rest is probably going to go to op shops or something, but it felt very good to clear that energy and feel open-minded and motivated despite not really doing too much. So that is a lesson for anyone that needs to hear it. And finally, an update on the businesses and personal brand growth. Art of Monday's update is on the screen right now. We've had 326 applications in total, which is up about 24 from last week. I think that's the most applications we've had. That was largely pushed by, at the end of each month, we do a solid push on socials and emails to let people know that we're opening our doors on the first Monday of the month and then closing them again. So it always creates a lot of action. We have 50 members. We crossed that threshold, which is pretty epic. The average member is 27 years old, and they're all lifestyle founders, which takes us to about 175K in revenue since we started, 55K of which came in the last 30 days. So it gives you an idea of like the sort of curve that's starting to form, which is really cool to see. And like I said earlier, I think we're expecting a couple more members to come through today before we actually close the doors. It is Monday after all. Founder Sports Club update. We have 533 active members in the sports club, which is up about 64 from last week, and that includes some cancellations. So we're sitting at about 3,500 monthly recurring revenue with that. However, the plan was never to make that a crazy profitable revenue generating thing. But it is cool to see that it is revenue generating and profitable. Finally, personal brand growth stats. I'm at 7,492 subs on YouTube. That's up 116. Probably my slowest week since in the last 6 months, I'd say. Instagram is at 148.9, which is down 264. No news there. And TikTok is at 329.9K, which is up 794. If you go look at my TikTok, it's at jaya.journeys. For some reason, I just have a crazy strike rate. The last 5 videos are like nearly all millions of views. So that's dope to see. And some of those, funnily enough, are actually sound ads. So I was paid to use a certain sound on those videos, and they're also performing well. So that's a double win. And finally, Art of Monday's Instagram is at 7,893, which is up 451 from last week. I forgot to put a question to ponder like I normally do. So I would love to know, what are you grateful for today? Leave a comment, let me know. And free stuff, socials, all the links that you need to know in my businesses are all in the description below. I appreciate you being here. I'll see you in the next one.